Hello and welcome to the 1517 YouTube channel. My name is Caleb Keith, and today I am joined by Adam Francisco to do theology in 15 minutes or less. And today's topic is Islam. Adam is a scholar in residence at 1517. In fact, he runs the scholar in residence program here at 1517. So if you like this video or you like other content with Adam in it, and you're looking for somebody to come teach something at your church or maybe at a small conference or gathering you have, reach out. Adam says yes a lot. So you might just be able to have him there.
Too much.
Too much, probably, yeah. But today we're talking about a speciality of yours, which is Islam. And we recorded an episode of Thinking Fellows where we basically said, what do Christians need to know about Islam? So for this video, I thought, I'll just ask you some overlapping questions with that, but maybe then I'll add some other curveballs in there. But I guess the first question is, do Christians need to know about Islam? Is there like a minimum threshold that Christians should inform themselves about Islam?
Well, the quick answer is yes. I'll add to it a bit more, like maybe answering the question why. Islam is the second and might soon, some estimates suggest that by 2050 it'll be the largest world religion, outpacing Christianity, and its growth is primarily due to just large or high birth rates in Muslim majority countries, but also in countries where Muslims migrate to in Western Europe and in America. So there's that. There's a good chance that if you haven't already, you'll have a Muslim neighbor or a coworker or a friend or what have you. Also, a second reason why I would say is there's a whole lot of misinformation about Islam that's even put out there by Christians, suggesting that Islam and Christianity are effectively they're not the same religion, but they're two paths to a single destination. Sometimes they'll throw in Judaism too and describe them all as Abrahamic faiths. And the more you learn about Islam, the more you realize that Islam sees itself as, in a way, kind of like a religion that supersedes Judaism and then Christianity, but that's kind of a surface level understanding of it. It's more Islam sees itself, the Quran envisions Islam as a restoration of the one true religion that's been revealed since the time of Adam. It's just that Jews and Christians have corrupted it over time and kind of, in a way, created their own knockoffs of Islam.
That rolls into an excellent second question, which I think was being debated largely in some Christian circles online, starting with some YouTube videos. There were some X threads about this. I'm sure it was on Facebook too, but there was quite the argument stirred up about whether or not Christians and Muslims worship the same God, just with the incorrect details. Is that where would you say Christians should fall on that question?
Well, for Christians, we know God through Jesus Christ. We worship in our worship. We worship the triune God. That's right worship. That's worshiping God as He would have us understand Him. Islam, the Quran says it in at least, I don't know, I want to say it's about a half a dozen places, denies that Jesus was the Son of God, denies that Jesus has any sort of a divine nature. In fact, rejects that Jesus was crucified on a cross and therefore He didn't rise from the dead. So in effect, even though the Quran does not say that Christianity is false, that's effectively the message of Islam. So the theological answer is no, they do not worship the same God, just albeit incorrectly. There is one thing, a little more nuance, maybe we might add, especially on the more practical level. We do know from the scriptures that all people have sort of this basic natural knowledge of God. So a person who might describe themselves as a Muslim might initially have in mind one true God, but immediately, but it'd be hazy, because you got to fill in the information. What does that mean? And so if you go looking to a text like the Quran, so a 7th century text filled with I arguably ideas from various religious traditions, from Judaism, Christianity, and maybe even some Zoroastrian and perhaps others, it goes astray all but immediately. So
Right.
the answer is no.
Well,
But
there you go.
you can count on, like with anybody else, you can, in speaking with non-Christians, you can be sure that though they'll define him very differently. They have some conception of the true God. It's just that it gets they fill all the details in with false ideas.
Yeah, it definitely demonstrates when you have these monotheistic religions, or even what are called the Abrahamic religions, the limitation of knowing God through his law only, especially just in nature or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you start filling in the details about who that God is,
Yeah.
and you start
Yeah.
making things up.
Yeah.
What are the most common objections to the Christian faith that you might encounter? Because I've heard about sort of, Islamic apologists. I don't think they'd call themselves evangelists, really, though, who, in just having normal encounters with Christians, pose these stumbling blocks to Christians, sort of trying to maybe, shake your faith in Jesus or in the Christian scriptures or something like that. So what are the common ones that Christians should be prepared to both endure or have an answer for?
Yeah. Well, there's quite a few that you can kind of anticipate, because they seem to pop up always. One that's especially among your younger, more around Muslims who have done some study of Christianity for the purpose of conversing and perhaps converting, or they might use the term reverting Christians back to Islam. But that's the charge that the Torah, the Psalms, and the Gospel, or we could just say that the Bible has been corrupted over time. So, and there's some nuance that some will claim that the Bible, the understanding of what the Bible teaches, has been corrupted. So Deuteronomy 18 has Moses prophesying, predicting that a prophet will come from Israel that's greater than him. And of course, Christians say that's Jesus. For Muslims, that actually is a reference to Muhammad. Then you get some who will say that the text itself has been altered, not just in the variants that you might find in the different manuscripts of the thousands of manuscripts we have of the New Testament, with like some misspellings and word order changes and things like that. But they'll suggest purposeful corruption of the text. I don't know. I've not seen this one used recently, but a popular Muslim apologist named Ahmed Deedat, who died, I want to say maybe a decade and a half ago, argued that the paraclete referred to in John chapters 14 and 16, in its original Greek, had a Greek word that, if translated into Arabic, was Ahmed, which is another name for Muhammad. The Quran, in fact, has a passage in I think it's 61, chapter 61. I want to say verse 6, that has Isa, the Jesus in the Quran, predicting a prophet after him who will be.
So
named
Jesus
Ahmed.
is not prophesying about the Holy Spirit, but about Muhammad.
Correct. Yeah. So,
yeah.
And that scribes have changed that over time.
Okay.
So another thing would be the accusation. This is more of a theological critique that the doctrine of the Trinity is kind of a made-up theological concept, because you don't find the term Trinity in the New Testament. There's this sort of assumption that it's been superimposed. Perhaps Paul kind of came up with a term, or Emperor Constantine and the bishops at the Council of Nicaea invented the term. Of course, the term Trinity is not in the New Testament. It's just the term we use to describe the data we have in the New Testament. When Jesus says baptize in the name, using the singular word there, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, or Jesus promises he's going to petition the Father to send the Holy Spirit to his apostles. So those are the two big ones.
So I think it's fair to say that in the modern world, Islam is the greatest persecutor, like bodily persecutor of Christians in the world today. Maybe not in America or the West, since we're fortunate to live
Right.
here, but the deaths of Christians in the thousands are at the hands of um, Muslims, and, and happens every year, sometimes without getting any news coverage throughout Northern Africa and things like that. But also, people are afraid here too of, say, as Muslim population centers grow. There's examples in Michigan, examples in Texas, and things like that of sort of Islamic political theory coming to reign, or even being worried that their children might be evangelized into Islam in school systems and things like that, where Christianity has maybe been suppressed, but Islamic religions, for the sake of inclusion, are sort of allowed to be openly practiced. What
Mhm.
did you say to people who are afraid of Islam, both spiritually and bodily?
So on the notion of Islam and violence, to be sure, the Quran, it's quite startling. And chapter 9 of the Quran, for example, has all sorts of exhortations from Muhammad, who's in the Muslim view, speaking Allah's word to, fight the infidels, kill them wherever you find them. Chapter 9, verse 5, the verse of the sword is probably the most famous. Chapter 9, verse 29 targets the people of the book, Christians and Jews. Some might add Zoroastrians, that if they're not willing to embrace Islam or submit to Islamic rule, they have to pay an additional a poll tax if they're going to live under Islamic rule. If they aren't willing to do any of those two things, though, they're to kill them. So there is that in the Quran. There are Muslims, however, and I don't know exactly how far back it would go, but at least in the modern age, there are Muslims who have been careful to study the context of those violent passages and to place them in historical circumstances such that it's not valid for Muslims today. Though a very famous Muslim, Tariq Ramadan, he was once, The Economist called him the Martin Luther of Islam, once said that the Quran cuts across all time and frontiers. So that's something that Muslims have to and do wrestle with themselves. In America, there, like any group that has a real distinct ideology, there's always going to be those who are willing to take it or to coerce or to use violence or political activism to get their way. I don't want to just single out Muslims. I think of Westboro Baptist Church. They don't use violence, and that's an old reference to a crackpot, heterodox at best organization. So there are lots of these things. So I don't know that if Muslims were the majority in this country, then we'd have a real issue. We're a long, long, long ways from that. They comprise maybe 1% of the American population. Though our church body, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, there's at least two, if not three times more Muslims in the United States than there are LCMS Lutherans, just to put that in perspective. I do think the thing that should concern us is how Islam has, in recent years, maybe decades, been kind of rebranded such that it's like a kinder, gentler form of Islam.
Sure.
And with a distinct Unitarian monotheistic theology, and you see it on college campuses, especially that Muslim activists or missionaries or apologists go to work at trying to bring non-Muslims back to what they believe is the natural religion that they would know by nature if they were just reminded of who they truly are. And the Quran and the traditions of Islam teach that all people are by nature Muslim. It's just you need to be woken up to that or awakened to that fact.
Okay. Well, thank you, Adam. If you want to hear more, go listen to our full-length episode of the Thinking Fellows podcast. We actually even talked about my dad Bruce and I talked at the end of that we all had more questions for you too. So there'll be probably another episode on this topic in the future as well. Thank you for watching this. Don't forget to subscribe, and definitely you can go look up the Thinking Fellows podcast in your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube here as well, and go watch our full length show on what Christians should know about Islam. Thanks for watching. Bye.